The 2000s gave rise to the greatest comedy movies of all time. But which filmmaker is the king of comedy movies? Todd Phillips made his debut with Road Trip and would go on to direct Old School, Starsky and Hutch, and the Hangover Trilogy, among others. Judd Apatow got his movie debut with The 40-Year-Old Virgin, then Knocked Up, Funny People, and This Is 40, while also having a hand in virtually all of the other great comedy movies of the 2000s. And the final verdict on who's crowned the king of comedy movies honestly even surprised me and fundamentally changed how I view the debate. Round 1. Who's funnier? Todd Phillips' movies are honestly some of the funniest movies I've ever seen. They hit on literally all cylinders. I don't care if it's Road Trip, Old School, the Hangover Trilogy, even Due Date, the list goes on. I mean, outside of maybe Seth MacFarlane, and this video is not about Seth MacFarlane, I can't think of anyone who crafts together funnier scenes. Pound for pound, he's probably the funniest dialogue writer I've ever encountered.
She is wearing my grandmother's ring.
What?
The ring I'm gonna give to Melissa. You remember my grandmother's Holocaust ring?
I didn't know they give out rings at the Holocaust.
And another thing with Todd that I notice with just all of the great minds in comedy is that Todd does not hold back at all. Whatever he thinks is going to be the funniest thing will be what makes the final draft and what makes the final cut of the movie. And switching over to Judd Apatow, his movies definitely take a more dramedy approach, but the comedy way outweighs the drama in his movies. Outside of Judd and Todd, I can think of very few other filmmakers who can consistently get laughs the way they get them with me. Contrasting to Todd, Judd has at least hinted that there are boundaries that he's not comfortable crossing. I mean, he was speaking on a podcast. He mentioned how in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, there's the scene when Kevin Hart comes into the store, and he said that there were several bits of dialogue that were completely improv, dialogue that he would never personally feel comfortable writing, and that's just not something you're gonna get with Todd. If there's something that really crosses the line in his movies, I guarantee he came up with it on his own. And overall, I just think Todd's a funnier guy. I mesh more with his sense of humor, and I think he's just funnier and more consistently funnier throughout his movies, so I'm going to give round 1 edge to Todd. Getting into round 2, the style of movies. All of Judd Apatow's movies fit into the subgenre of comedy that I like to call the everyday life comedy. Everything that happens on screen, without a shadow of a doubt, could or has happened in real life. I mean, just looking at his filmography. I mean, if you look at The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Funny People, Knocked Up, I would challenge you to think of one thing that's happened in any of those movies that could not happen in real life. Whereas with Todd Phillips, his movies tend to cross genres. I mean, The Hangover is a mystery comedy, Starsky and Hutch is a crime comedy, The Hangover 3 is a thriller comedy. We definitely get taken on quite the adventure on each of his films. You know, technically everything that happens in his movies could happen in real life. It's just a lot of these things would require a series of extremely unlikely events in order to occur.
I love cocaine!
Honestly, I'm not usually a fan of merging comedy with other genres. I just think it usually just does not work. And the bulk of the time, the comedy takes the back seat. But he's literally the only filmmaker I can think of that can make a genre merging comedy where I'm actually super excited about and I'm confident will be funny. With that being said, as a whole, just the concept of everyday life and being grounded in reality is what I prefer. It's the style that I personally employ as a filmmaker. So I'm definitely going to give the edge to Judd Apatow here. Getting into round 3, the filmmakers as collaborators and who can get the best out of everyone. So Judd Apatow is actually super reliant on improv in his movies, and I don't think that that's a negative at all. I think that some of the greatest lines and just scenes in general in movies have been improv'd. And I think improv is a phenomenal tool. I am not knocking Judd at all with this. I mean, again, as a filmmaker with me, I love testing out improv on set. In both of my features so far, there has been definitely several lines that have been improv'd. But when you get into the actors in Judd Apatow's movies, I feel like it's really the usual suspects each time that are standing out. If you look at The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, This Is 40. I would say in all of those movies, Paul Rudd by far and away gives the funniest performances in each of these movies, but he's only the lead in one of those 3 movies. That's not a knock either. Paul Rudd is my second favorite actor of all time. I think he is hilarious. I think he is just such a brilliant comedic actor, but it is a fact that Judd is heavily reliant on his talent. His talent is more so going to sell the comedy than him himself. But contrasting to Todd Phillips, Todd is not a big employer of improv. In fact, the bulk of the scenes or just lines in general in his movies are as written on the page, which really blows me away that he's able to get the performances that he's able to get. And it also makes me wonder, like, would his movies benefit from more improv? In Todd Phillips's movies, it's a different actor leading the charge each time and putting on the best performance. I mean, it's Sean William Scott in Road Trip, Vince Vaughn in Old School, Ben Stiller in Starsky and Hutch, and Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover. And he's able to get just such a great performance from such a wide array of actors that I really trust him with any actor. Really just this trustworthiness and this ability to get an A+ performance out of any actor, regardless of their experience with comedy up to this point, that Todd Phillips has, makes me give the edge to Todd Phillips in this round. Round 4, vibe and feel-good factor. So Todd Phillips's movies, as have been well established, these movies are just so funny. But that's kind of where it stops. These movies are never too deep, and I'm not criticizing him for that aspect. I'm a huge advocate for him and his movies. I think they are just wonderful. But at the end of his movies, I'm still just in this laughy phase, this laughy mood. And, you know, I'm thinking back on the movie and just thinking about how funny this movie actually was, and I feel great. But they never fundamentally change how I think about life or anything like that. It's more just like, wow, that was funny. But with Judd Apatow, his movies blend comedy and drama to the extent that his movies are just so much more heartfelt, and they lead to more emotionally powerful and charged stories. And that's just not something I'm necessarily getting from a Todd Phillips movie, so I'm definitely giving the edge to Judd Apatow here. But I'd be curious to hear from you. Are you looking for something with strong dramatic elements as well that's going to make you think, maybe challenge your beliefs, or are you more so just looking to laugh? Lastly, round 5, legacy and overall contributions to comedy. Judd Apatow didn't just write and or direct a good chunk of the 2000s and 2010 comedies. He produced over 20 in his heyday. He's also been there as a mentor and producer, even for comedy movies being made in recent times in the 2020s. You know, I mentioned the 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, but then there's also movies like Anchorman, Anchorman 2, Superbad, Pineapple Express, just so many movies that he did not write or direct, but that he helped get made. Movies that would not exist if he was not in the room for them. Getting into Todd Phillips, he's really made the careers for so many actors. I mean, while Vince Vaughn was established, he helped paint Vince Vaughn in a new light in Old School and helped sell Vince Vaughn as the comedic actor that we all know and love. Zach Galifianakis was a complete nobody before headlining The Hangover. Bradley Cooper, while he was an established actor, he wasn't necessarily the one you would think of when it comes to comedy, and also he just was nowhere near as large as he is nowadays. Ed Helms was on The Office, but this also wasn't as big of a show as it ended up becoming when The Hangover was shot, and he also played a minor supporting role in that movie, and The Hangover really shot him up the star rankings. He's really put forth quite the contributions to the comedy movie genre. With that being said, I just don't think you can argue against the 20+ projects that Judd Apatow has produced, along with his constant support and advocacy for comedy movies. This round definitely has to go to Judd Apatow. But the final verdict, Todd Phillips is definitely a lot funnier. He just makes funnier movies, while Judd Apatow makes amazing dramedy movies. And I'm going to be completely honest, when I first started thinking about this topic, I was very much so in favor of crowning Todd Phillips the king of comedy movies. I couldn't imagine giving it to Judd Apatow, to be honest, even though I love Judd Apatow and I am forever grateful for all of his contributions. His masterclass changed my life as a filmmaker. From a pure movie standpoint, Todd Phillips is the king of comedy movies. Judd Apatow is the king of dramedy movies. But it's a lot deeper than that. Judd Apatow has simply just done done way more for the genre than Todd Phillips has. And of course, you have the 26 other comedy movies that Judd Apatow did not write or direct, but did produce. He's just given the opportunity to so many and has been the voice for comedy that we all need, especially now more than ever. And with that in mind, you simply cannot crown anyone else but Judd Apatow the king of comedy movies. And if you love Judd Apatow and Todd Phillips' movies, you might be surprised to learn how much their careers depended on the success of American Pie. Because without it, we likely never get any of your favorite comedy movies of the 2000s. And I explain exactly why here.